What's up, everybody? It's Broken Bones here, and welcome to Broken's Bedrock Tutorials. Today, we're going to be showing you how to make flying machines. Flying machines such as this one over here and that one over there, these are some of the things that I've created in my own world to try to make something useful in my survival worlds. Flying machines can come in all different shapes and sizes, and the possibilities of what you can do with them is pretty much endless. And you can make flying machines work pretty much however you want. For example, this one will only work when you flick this fence gate right here. So if we close it like that, it'll move forward by 1 block. And if we open it, it'll move forward by 1 block. And some machines just keep going and going and going. This flying machine here actually zigzags these blocks for me, just like this. That way, if you wanted to create a checkerboard pattern, it would be pretty easy to do with this thing. Which ultimately led to this design. I was trying to make a checkerboard pattern for the roof of a nether hub, and so this does a really good job, and it's super easy to do. But placing blocks in a checkerboard pattern like this is not easy to do because there's no block to place your block on because there's air above it. So that can be rather tedious and hard, but this machine makes it super easy. So if we go ahead and take our blocks, go just like this all the way across here to the last piston, come down here to these pistons, go ahead and bring these blocks all the way back just like that. We can place a couple straight lines in, which as you saw was pretty fast and pretty easy. And now if we come down here and we click our flying machine, it's going to go ahead and send all those blocks into a checkerboard pattern just like this, completing the whole pattern. But flying machines don't only just work by themselves, they can be incorporated into any redstone contraption whatsoever, such as this tree farm right here. This is an oak mode circuit. This flying machine actually flies down, stunning the tree growth so you don't get any large oak trees. And as you can see here, if we update our observer here, that updates the oak mode, which sends that down, which stunts the growth. So if we go ahead and undo that, you'll see that it goes right back up, just like so. And one of the coolest features about flying machines is that since there's no actual physical redstone or anything to get washed away, they do work underwater. And so they work great for farms like this kelp farm. And so if we go ahead and come right up here, we can see that if we activate our flying machine, then it's going to go ahead and fly with no problem directly underwater, just like this. And this one is two-way flyable, so it'll go here, it'll get triggered, and then it'll go ahead and fly right back, where it'll come right back to its station and get docked just like this. But regardless of what those flying machines do, there's one thing that all of them have in common. They confuse you. Regardless if you're an advanced redstoner or a beginner at redstone, they confuse pretty much everybody. Everyone that I've met has a hard time learning these. And then once you understand it, you're flying off just like your flying machine. So with that being said, let's go ahead and teach you how flying machines work. All flying machines pretty much rely on a slime block to make sure that they're all connected up and they're all kind of functioning. As you can see, most of my flying machines are all built out of slime, and you can build them out of honey too. Honey works just fine. It has all the same properties as slime. However, honey is a little bit more expensive to get and harder to make. However, slime here, you can just build a quick little slime farm and make all the balls into slime blocks, which is pretty easy. One of the key differences between honey and slime is the fact that honey is not a full block. As you can see, the bounding box right here is actually 1 pixel shy of the actual skin that you're actually seeing. If you look right here, there's actually a pixel right there between the slime block and the honey block. And if you look at the slime block bounding box, the black line around it actually encompasses the entire block. Another thing these blocks have in common is that they stick to pretty much any other block type. So if you put any type of block on them whatsoever, those blocks are going to stick to that slime block. However, if you go like this, if you go ahead and push a honey block next to a slime block, it actually won't do anything because honey blocks and slime blocks don't stick together. So now you know why slime is the block of choice when it comes to building flying machines. So let's go ahead and show you how to build one. If you're in Java Edition, you can simply just use sticky pistons. If you're unsure what a piston or a sticky piston is, a piston is a block that can push other blocks. So if we go just like this and we power this piston, it'll go ahead and push that block over. However, if we retract it, because it's a sticky piston, it's got green on its face, it'll also retract the block that's on its face. However, if you have a regular piston like this, you can go ahead and push another block just like this. However, it won't retract. So when you push it, it'll stay there even though you depower it. However, in Java Edition, if a sticky piston receives a 1 tick pulse or less, then it will spit its block out off its face, which I can't replicate here in Bedrock Edition, because no matter how short of a pulse you give it, it'll always retract the block. But in Java Edition, you guys can use just straight up sticky pistons because it'll spit the block out. And that's pretty much the biggest difference between Java Edition and Bedrock Edition when it comes to flying machines. But regardless of which edition you play in, we're going to be teaching you how flying machines work today. So if you guys are ready to learn, then go ahead and smack the like button for me and subscribe if you guys are new, and let's get ready to learn how flying machines work. So if you're on Java Edition, you can go ahead and leave your sticky piston alone. You can leave it right there. However, if you're on Bedrock, we're going to go ahead and put in a regular piston like this. And so once we have that in place, next we're going to need ourselves an observer. So go ahead and come on down below, place in a couple temporary blocks like this. You're going to want to place an observer with the red dot facing inwards just like this. So go ahead and break out your 2 temporary blocks. Now you can see that the arrow of the observer is facing in towards the slime block right there, and the face of the observer is on the opposite side of the slime block regardless of where it is. And this observer could be on the top, it could be on the bottom, it could be on the back or the side like it is now. So once you have this in place, for the simplicity of this, we're going to leave it on the side. We're going to go ahead and come out by a couple blocks right there, leaving a gap just like this. Go ahead and grab yourself a sticky piston and face it backwards towards this slime block right over here. Then what we need to do is we need to go ahead and grab ourselves a couple more temporary blocks and put in 2 temporary blocks there with an observer facing this direction. And this is going to be the same thing. The red dot is going to be facing in towards the slime block. The arrow should be facing in towards the slime block, and the face of the observer should be on the opposite side of your slime block. That means that everything should get powered when it's activated now. And so the explanation of what's going to happen here is we're going to activate this observer. That's going to power this piston. It's going to extend, and the sticky face of that piston is going to grab this slime block and pull it back towards it. So this is going to move in that direction. When that happens, this observer is going to update and it's going to power this piston, except it'll be over here. And when this piston extends, since it's a regular piston in Bedrock Edition, it's going to push this that way, and it's going to leave it out there. If you're in Java Edition, you can use a sticky piston, and it's going to push it that way and leave it out anyway because it's receiving a 1-tick pulse. So once this moves, then it's all going to happen again. This is going to move, that's going to update, it's going to power this sticky piston, it's going to pull this that way, then this is going to update, it's going to power that piston, push this that way, it's going to update this observer, it's going to push this piston and pull it back, it's going to update that. So it just goes back and around in a circle just like that. So let's go ahead and watch that work here in live action. So if we activate this, we can see that that's exactly what's happening. This is getting pushed, it's updating this piston, it's pulling it back, it's updating that observer, which is powering this piston, which is pushing it back forward. Now if you ever wanted to stop this thing, you're going to need obsidian or something like that, or increase the block limit, because pistons can only push up to 12 blocks. So if you increase that to 13, it'll also stop. But now that our flying machine is stopped, there's a difference in the update order in which we need to do, because if you look at this, if we update this one again, it'll actually spit that piston out because it's extended when it's actually being pulled back, which is not what we want. That's why it's been left out there like this. However, if we do activate this again, it'll pull it right back into place and it'll start up again. You just need to activate that twice. So if we go ahead and stop this one more time, now once it's like this, if you activate it over here on the pushing circuit, then we'll go ahead and just activate it once and it'll take off just like this. So you do need to make sure that you know which side of your flying machine that you're going to activate, and it's pretty much whatever direction it's going to be flying in. So if it's going to be flying in this direction, then you're going to update the piston that's going to be pushing it just like this. So again, we're going to update the piston that's pushing it, it's going to fly in that direction. However, if you're going to go like this, if you're going to have a block right here, just like, if I can get that in front of there we go. All right, so if we go just like this, if we go like that, and then we take some obsidian and we go like this, just like that, to make sure that that doesn't get pulled across. So now that there's a gap, the first one that we're going to do is the pulling circuit. So it depends on which way it needs to go. If it needs to push first, you need to activate that observer, and if it needs to pull first, then you need to activate that observer. So this one needs to pull, so we're going to activate the pulling observer first, and it's going to push off that way. So now you guys can see the difference. So if it needs to pull or push, you can see now it needs to push. So we're going to activate the other observer, and it's going to take off just once. So that's something that you need to keep in mind. But this is the simplest flying machine. It's a 2-piston flying machine. There's really not much to it. It's literally just this observer powering the sticky piston, this pulling the whole assembly across, that observer powering that piston, and then pushing it back and forth, and then it'll go ahead and cycle that whole cycle back and through. There is one thing that I want you guys to pay attention to, and it's the fact that if you put observers in the upwards position like this and you have them looking up, if you're inside of a snow biome or anything like that, it can have a snow layer go right here, which will activate the observer at the wrong time, which is not what you want. So If you're in a snow biome, I definitely recommend putting your observers sideways or even downwards. And if your observers are facing sideways or even down like this, you're going to want to make sure that there's nothing over here that's going to be updating your observers, that it's going to accidentally grow a tree right here or something when your flying machine is going across and updating at the wrong time. So just make sure that there's nothing in the face of the observer that's when it's going to fly, it's going to obstruct it and update it at the wrong time. So as long as you make sure that your flying machine has a clear path to fly down, then it'll continue to fly forever and ever and ever off in the distance until it becomes unloaded. And so now, since we've learned the simplest engine and how to make sure that it works all the time, now this is the fastest engine that you can actually make. This is a 2-piston engine, and you can only slow it down from here. So if you wanted to slow it down, then all of your pushing pistons would need to be regular pistons if you're in Bedrock Edition. However, if you're in Java Edition, you can leave every piston as a sticky piston. But nonetheless, you're going to need pushing pistons and pulling pistons. So now for a slower flying machine, I'm going to go ahead and take my piston and I'm going to put it over here, and that's because that's where I'm going to want it. So we're going to go ahead and duplicate this design over again. So let's go ahead and do exactly that. We're going to take a slime block here. We're going to go ahead and take an observer, place it in right here just like that. We're going to take ourselves a piston and put it in there just like so. So now that we have that, we're going to go ahead and come out another block right here just like this. And actually, I think we can actually preload it just like that. We're going to come out by 3 blocks like this. Now we're going to need a pulling circuit. So we're going to go ahead and add a sticky piston and an observer over here. Let's go ahead and add that here. Just like this. There we go. All right, so now that this is going to get pushed, that means that this line block needs to be directly on the face of this guy. So what we're going to do now is we're going to do the exact same thing. Put ourselves an observer, just like this, with a sticky piston on it, like that. I think that can go ahead and just be the trend all the way across here. So if we go just like this, we can go just like that again and put another sticky piston in here, just like that. And then put one more right here, just like this. There we go. All right, so now that that's in place, we can go ahead and go just like this. We'll bring that all the way across there. Now this is a slower flying machine engine. So basically what we have going on here is we have the exact same principles. The observer is going to update the piston, and this is the one that's going to go first. This observer is going to update the piston. It's going to push this across. It's going to update that observer, which is going to power this sticky piston. Since it's sticky, it's going to grab this one, pull it back. It's going to update that observer. This sticky piston is going to grab this one, pull it back. It's going to update that observer. This is going to update and get powered, and it's going to pull this back, which is going to pull this back in, and it's going to restart the entire cycle again. So I believe here, if we go ahead and get started just like this, let's go ahead and activate this observer here. So let's go ahead and click that just like so. And there we go. Now we have a nice slow flying machine, and you can pretty much make this as large as you want. You can make it as slow or as fast as you would like. And again, to stop your flying machine, all you need to do is obstruct its path with obsidian or something that's immovable, just like that. And then as you can see, once it stops, it's in the same orientation that it was in. So then we can go ahead and start it again, just like that. And anytime we want to stop it, all we need is some obsidian when it stops, just like this, and it won't fly anymore. So now that you guys know how to make a flying machine and even a slow flying machine, I've come over here to my zigzag block machine to see if you guys can tell where the engine is in this flying machine, because this one's pretty easy to build. It's actually very, very simple. However, some of you might be looking at this going, wow, this is kind of complex. I'm not sure where the engine is. So go down in the comment section and guess where the engine is. If you know where it is, then let me know down in the comments. And if you don't know where it is, then go ahead and take a really good guess. Try to look at this picture and see what you guys see. Let me know if you think it's the front section, or if you think it's this middle section right here, because this is kind of like an engine right here too, or if you think it's the back side. So let me know if it's the middle, the front, or the back, and I'll let you guys have a few more seconds to leave your comments down below. And if you guys have guessed that it's in the back, then you would be correct, because this is the engine right here, and it stops right here at these line blocks. This piston over here going to this line block is an attachment. What's an attachment? Well, an attachment is anything that can be pushed or pulled from a flying machine engine. So since this has an observer here already in the engine, we're going to go ahead and use a piston right here to go ahead and do a pushing attachment. And then here in the back over here, we don't have an observer, so we're actually going to go ahead and implement one in here right now. So let's go ahead and place in a temporary block there. We'll place an observer right there just like that, and that'll make it to where we can put a sticky piston in here. This is going to be a pulling attachment. So if we place ourselves on a slime block just like this, and then over here in the pushing attachment, we're going to need to have a space in there just like this. So these are going to be my attachments now. So let's go ahead and activate our flying machine and make sure that they do stay attached. So if we go just like this, you can see that it's going to go ahead and push this slime block along, and it's going to go ahead and pull that block along. So as you can see, those are now attachments, and these really aren't needed for the flying machine to run, but it's now running with the flying machine. So when adding attachments to your flying machine, there are a couple rules that you need to follow, and one of those rules is pistons cannot push more than 12 blocks regardless if you're in Java or Bedrock. That's just the push limit that they have, and so you need to make sure that all of the blocks that it's pushing equal up to 12 or less. And so let's go ahead and imitate that right now. So here's one block, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and that's pretty much all the slime blocks that you're going to be able to put in, because you're going to need 11 for an observer. There's the observer, and then you need 12 for another piston. So there's 12 blocks in total, just like that. So now if we go ahead and start our flying machine, it should go ahead and start pushing this attachment along just like this, no problem. And as you can see, now it's going to go ahead and push our attachment along, and it doesn't really need to be there for the flying machine, but it is an attachment and it's being pushed. And all we need to do now is go ahead and activate this. Let's go ahead and stop our flying machine over here, just like that. There we go, and that's where you want to stop it. You don't want to stop it in the front over here, because if you stop your attachments, they're going to go ahead and back up into your machine. Then you'll have to reorder the whole attachment pretty much, which looks a lot like a traffic jam. So let's go ahead and imitate that. So let's go ahead and build ourselves another attachment right here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, just like that. Let's go ahead and put ourselves an observer here. We'll put one in there just like this, and this time we're going to go ahead and put ourselves in a piston right there just like this, and then we're going to come right out here. We're going to go ahead and put in a stopping block just like this. That's already in place, and then we're going to watch our machine here go into a traffic jam. So let's go ahead and start it up here. We'll go ahead and start our flying machine just like this, and now when it hits that obsidian block, it's going to all crush itself, which is perfectly fine because we can undo it, but I'm going to show you guys how to do it, because eventually you're going to run into this problem your own self. So here goes our piston. It is now going to traffic jam. Now it is all pushed together, and now no matter what, if we undo this obsidian block, now our flying machine won't fly. So let's go ahead and try that. If we update this observer here, nothing happens. Nothing at all happens, because we've increased the push limit to more than 12. It's now 24, because now we have 2 attachments that are full 12 blocks. So what we need to do now is we need to actually go ahead and unstick this. So what we're going to do is we're going to go from the front to the back. So this is the first attachment pusher. So we're going to push that out. Then over here, we need to do the same thing. We need to actually go ahead and start this one, and I believe that may or may not. Okay, that's exactly what we wanted to do. You got to make sure that all the push limits are, this has more of a push limit, so I was wondering if this was going to start going in the wrong direction, but it didn't. So nonetheless, this is the way that it needs to be. Any of your pushing circuits are all going to have a gap in between them. So anything in the front of your flying machine in the way that it's flying is going to need a gap, so it can be moved so this observer can update and power that piston and then push again. So that's something that's there, which is weird, because in the back you're not going to have a gap. You're going to make sure that you have no space at all, because this sticky piston's going to get pulled, and then at that point it's going to go ahead and pull this slime block back. So let's go ahead and build some pulling attachments. So again, even though that pistons can only push 12 blocks, they can also only pull 12 blocks. Let's go ahead and build a 12 block wide attachment. So this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, just like that. We'll go ahead and put ourselves an observer just like this, and we'll go ahead and put in ourselves a sticky piston, because this is a pulling attachment. So let's go ahead and do this again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Oop, we don't want 11, we only want 10, because this is going to be 11 right there, and then 12 just like that. So let's go ahead and put a sticky block on the end of that one. So now that this is all ready to go, now we got ourselves quite a long flying machine. Let's go ahead and just activate this observer right here, and that'll go ahead and start the whole sequence. And as you can see, our pushing attachments are being pushed, and our pulling attachments are being pulled. In the event of a traffic jam like I showed you earlier, let's go ahead and simulate that. So we'll go ahead and create a traffic jam here. As you can see here, the pulling attachments don't have any problem because they are already all together like this. However, the pushing attachments do need the gap in the front to work, and so therefore, if you do have a traffic jam, the front pushing attachments are the only ones that you're going to have a problem with. And as I showed you earlier, you just got to work your way from the front to the back. So this is the first flying attachment. So we're going to go ahead and activate the piston that pushes that forward just like this. This is the second piston, so then we're going to activate that just like that, and now we're ready to go again. And one of the things to keep in mind, regardless if you're in Bedrock Edition or Java Edition, is that if you build yourself a slow engine like this with multiple pistons in it, it is going to be a directional flying machine. It'll only fly in one direction because the pushing is going to need a block gap just like this to get started, and the pulling is going to need no gap just like that to get started. So once you have your flying machine built, regardless of how you built it, it's only really going to fly in one direction. However, there are dual direction flying machines. So if you're in Java Edition, you can get away with a really tiny two-way flying machine just like this. Sticky pistons just like this, observers going into them, and those two just looking at each other, so they're identical pretty much, just like this. If you go around in each direction, it's just an observer, a slime block, and a sticky piston, and an observer, a slime block, and a sticky piston. So it's super easy. But in Bedrock Edition, that actually doesn't work. As you can see, if we activate that there, it actually pulls us back and it doesn't get to fly forward. So in Bedrock Edition, we have to use glazed terracotta to make two-way flying machines. And as you can see here, if we go ahead and activate this, it'll go ahead and fly in one direction just like this. And once it gets to the other side, this arm that's hanging out here is going to stop on this obsidian, making it have a gap just like that. So when we go ahead and activate this one, it's going to go ahead and pull it right back. So why is that? Let's see why that is and break it down here. So as you can see here, we have one sticky piston right here that's on glazed terracotta. Glazed terracotta has a really cool feature. It doesn't stick to slime and it doesn't stick to sticky pistons. It's a block that's movable that doesn't stick to anything, which is really cool because as you saw there, we can push it, but a sticky piston won't pull it back, so we can continue to make a flying machine that goes in one direction with a sticky piston, which is cool. And then all we have to do is push it across to where that orientation changes. So if we activate this piston, let's go ahead and see the blocks here. This terracotta block and this piston and that slime block would all be pushed to the right. And if that was the case, this piston is now going to be on that terracotta block. This terracotta block is going to be on this slime block here, so it's not going to do anything. And this piston is now going to be on that slime block, so it's going to be able to pull it in that direction. So as we activate this, go ahead and see how that works. So now this sticky piston's able to grab that slime block and pull it along with it. And since glazed terracotta doesn't stick to anything, we have to make sure that this flying machine is pulling it across, which is why we have the slime going in the back behind it to make sure that it does get pulled. So now that it's over here, we can't go any further. So now what we need to do is we need to change the orientation of our terracotta and our sticky pistons. So now what we're going to do is we're going to scoot this back over. That sticky piston is going to grab this slime, and that terracotta is going to be in front of this piston, so it'll push in that direction. So let's go ahead and push it on back, and then you can see that happen. So there you go. That's exactly how two-way flying machines work. One way goes one way, and the other way goes the other way. In Java Edition, you would be able to add attachments to these two-way flying machines just like this, because no matter which way you're going, the sticky piston will spit out its block and it'll continue to run. However, if you're being pushed in this direction, you're going to need to make sure that whatever direction it's going in does have gaps in between just like this. The pulling side could be closed just like this, but because you're in Java Edition, all you'd have to do is activate this side. You could activate this side and get gaps on this side, then all of a sudden your two-way flying machine will be able to push this attachment in that direction, which is pretty cool. And if you're going to have a pulling circuit that's already been a pushing circuit, you would just have to reactivate these pistons here to go ahead and retract it all to where it's looking like this, to where now it could be a pulling circuit. And since you're in Java Edition, all that'll work with sticky pistons. However, if you're in Bedrock Edition, that is one advantage that they have over us, is that we cannot make two-way attachments really. They either go in one direction or the other, and I haven't really figured out a way to make them go in both. But regardless, this is going to be your most dependable two-way flying machine for Bedrock Edition, and this is going to be your most dependable two-way flying machine for Java Edition, which I know Bedrock's Edition is going to be a lot bigger than Java Edition's, and that's just because of the mechanics. But nonetheless, we do have another option. We don't have to push our blocks around here. We can actually get away from that with another option, and that's this version right over here. Instead of pushing your blocks around with glazed terracotta like that design over there, this design uses the fact that extended pistons are not a movable block. If a piston is extended, that cannot move. And as you can see here, this is a sticky piston which did get activated, but because it's in a movable block over here, it cannot pull that part of the flying machine with it, which is part of that. That is part of the mechanics of how this works. And then as you can see, the sticky piston is actually what's pulling the slime blocks over, so that's part of the flying flying machine, but depending on what order you update this in, if you update this side, it's going to fly in this way. If you update this side, it's going to fly that way. But nonetheless, whatever way you have it flying in, the piston over here is going to be immovable, and it's going to make it to where it only flies in one direction. So let's break this down and see how it works. This observer right here is going to activate this block, and it's going to power that piston, which is going to also update this observer and then power this piston. And when that happens, it's going to go ahead and extend. This is a sticky piston, and when this extends, this observer is going to trigger, and it's going to power this piston, which is going to make this piston extend, which again is an immovable block. And when this piston retracts, it's not going to be able to bring it with it. And so therefore, when this piston retracts, it's going to update this observer, which is going to update this piston, and then this piston is going to grab this slime block and it's going to pull it across. Then it's going to go ahead and update this observer, and it's going to update this piston, which is going to update that observer, which is going to update that piston, which is going to go ahead and push this slime block across. And again, it's going to update this observer. This is going to become an immovable block. This piston is going to retract, but it can't retract it because this is immovable. And then when this retracts, it's going to update that observer, which is going to update this piston again, which is going to grab this slime block and pull it across, and it's going to do that over and over again. So now that we know how it works, let's go ahead and watch it work. If we go ahead and click the side that needs to be clicked right there, we can see that it's going to get pushed across just like it is right now, and it'll fly all the way to the other side and then collide with itself, which is perfectly fine. It can do that. And then once we're on the other side, we'll click the other side, and as you can see, it's going to fly back with no problem. Some of the issues I've had with these is that it'll leave this piston behind. It'll go ahead and just leave this out here like that, and it won't bring it back with it because when it's extended, it's an immovable block, and sometimes it'll stay extended for some reason, and then the flying machine will leave it, and then it'll break. And if that's the case, then I wouldn't use it in that application, and I would definitely make sure that you're not crossing any chunk borders with this flying machine, because I'm pretty sure that's probably what's breaking it in Bedrock Edition. But as you can see, my example did not break. I'm just being honest with you, and it does break every once in a while, and I'm not exactly sure why that is, but nonetheless, I'm pretty sure chunk borders have something to do with that, and I would just be careful with it and use this in applications where you know it's going to work. And how you can do that is by testing your builds in creative mode before you ever go to survival. And this is one of my tests that I did. This was a large flying machine, and I was going to make this even bigger. It's going to be like 100 times bigger than this, but nonetheless, it does a very important task for me. I was trying to build a cactus farm, and I wanted to have a multi-layered cactus farm that was huge, and I wanted a bridge builder to help me build it, because when I was placing cactuses, I was going to have to go right here. I was going to go and have to place the sand and the cactus because that part cannot be automated, and so I wanted something to automatically put the bridge in for me, which is what this was. And it actually pulled the blocks out with these sticky pistons to go ahead and make sure that there was blocks for me to put the sand on, so it was extra convenient for me when I used it. However, this was a failed attempt. This actually didn't work, so I want you guys to not be afraid of testing your ideas in creative mode. That is one of the biggest things with Redstone, is making sure your stuff works before you go to survival, which is really easy to do in creative mode because you have all the blocks, and it doesn't really matter if you mess up. You can just scrap everything and try again. And with that being said, I hope you guys enjoyed today's tutorial on learning how flying machines work. Just keep in mind that you can be creative with these flying machines. You can have attachments on the front, you can have attachments on the side, and regardless of how they are, that you can pretty much do anything with them, and the sky's the limit, really. And so if you guys have any attachment ideas that you guys want me to try, I'll go ahead and try those. Just leave me a comment down below and challenge me and ask me if there's something that you guys need to do and you guys would like an attachment for it, and you're like, hey, I got an idea for a flying machine if it could only just do this. And I'll see what I can do. I'll see if I can come up with some attachments, and maybe we'll do some future videos where I show you guys some flying machine attachments. But for today, guys, that's all I got time for. So I hope you guys enjoyed today's tutorial, and if you guys did, please smack the like button and subscribe if you guys are new. I'm Broken Bones, and I'll be seeing you guys in the next tutorial. Take it easy, everybody.